This video is sponsored by Wildlife Command Center Coffee. More about them at the end of the video. Hey everybody, it's me, John Ward, and I am back with another One Filmmaker, One Film, and today my guests are...
Jonathan A. Moody.
And Paul Presenza, otherwise known as the Moo Cow. Moo.
So this is great. Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. Tell me a little bit about yourselves. Jonathan, why don't you go first?
Well, I'm a filmmaker slash podcaster and YouTuber as well. I got into this kind of a long time ago. I guess it feels like a long time ago. I guess it was 2006. That feels like a long freaking time ago. And I was basically kind of thrusted into the world of podcasting. I had no idea. I remember doing YouTube before podcasting, though. So I've done YouTube for a long time for Sick Flick Productions, my production company. But before then, I did, after then I did podcasting. I did a show called Independent Corner Radio Show on Blog Talk Radio, and I did that for 10 years. And then I ended up doing Indie Film Cafe with Paul, and Paul can talk a little bit more about that because that's when he kind of came into the fray for that. So that's it for me.
Okay. Yep. My name is Paul A. Presenza. Professionally, I am an archaeologist and cultural resources specialist, but I've had a love of movies that goes way, 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 way back to when I was a little bitty calf, and I have been collecting movies in one form or another for 40 years plus. And, it just so happened that I ran into Mr. Moody when a mutual friend of ours, somebody that he had worked with and somebody that I had worked with for various projects, invited us to an opening of her movie. And we met up and started chatting about movies. And we both seemed to know exactly the same kind of strange, independent, odd little movies. And so we struck up a friendship and we decided, hey, why don't we start watching movies, and then maybe we could talk about them on I think originally it was going to be a video cast, and then we tried that, and then we thought, maybe a podcast would be better. And so we created Indie Film Cafe, and then it kind of exploded from there. And we just have a whole bunch of different shows now. It's all part of the Indie Film Cafe network. And it pretty much sucks up all of my free time when I'm not doing my regular 9-to-5 job, and that's fine. It's cool. And then I got involved with Sick Flick Productions and everything that entailed, and it's been a fun experience. Been a lot going on. It's been very busy because we have so much going on, but it's been fun.
And that's basically why I wanted you guys on, because you influenced me, and I've brought this up a few times. So I thought it'd be interesting to make this episode about podcasting and starting a YouTube channel and what it goes into for doing that, the time that it takes. That people just think you sit in front of a camera and just it goes instantly on YouTube, and it's simple and it's easy, and it really isn't. So going back to the origins, what made you guys? Now you met. What was the actual thing of being like, hey, let's start this, let's do this? Like, how long ago was that?
Okay, so we met in 2014, I want to say it was about that. And then I invited Paul to be a ghost, like a burn ghost character in
Timmy the Burn Ghost.
Yeah, that's what he calls himself. And in The Invited, a short film that we did with Jackie Hall. And then, and then you were part of the Dracula's War thing that we tried to do that unfortunately got erased and fucking, sucks, that happened. But that was 2015, 2016-ish. Which would be like Paul would bring one movie over, and then I would have one movie, and then we'd watch it at my house. I think that's all we did. I don't think we ever watched anything at your house, if I'm correct.
I don't think so, but we would do things like we would pick a theme. Like I know we would do like a full moon night, or we would do.
That was for my birthday. We did a full moon night for my birthday. So we watched Robot. Was it not Robot Jocks? I don't think it was. It was the other one. Or was it Robot Jocks? It was one of those. And then we watched or Robot Wars. I think it was.
I did Head of the Family.
You did Head of the Family, but I did Robot Wars, and we watched that, and it was fun. It was a fun night. It was for my birthday. I think I was like 35 or something, 36, something like that. And we watched those, and we had a good time and enjoyed ourselves. And then that escalated to, hey, do you want to start a YouTube channel? And we tried it on. I don't use it anymore, but I had a thing called Indie Guy that I had. It was a YouTube channel where I would just talk about the movies I picked up every day. Like if I picked something up, I would talk about it. And then we decided to use that one, and we did Where Skeeto was like our first like real one we tried on that. And then
the Mimiverse. Yeah,
and it was sort of like, okay, let's start doing Indie Film Cafe. We created that. And I think it was my idea or your idea, like the title, or was it a combination?
I think we comboed it off, and then we just kind of figured out our parameters as we went, came up with the stinkometer. We came up with
you came up with the stinkometer. That was your collaboration. I know that for
based on what we were talking about. I mean, obviously we both were big Misty fans and Riff Tracks fans, and we wanted to set ourselves a bit apart from them. So we wanted to do that kind or worse, but we wanted to be somewhat different from them. In both of those shows, they take a movie and then they take it for a week and then they watch it over and over and over, and then they write a bunch of jokes and then they talk about it and then they figure out what's the best jokes and then they put it in the show. And we're like, okay, we want to do this a little bit different. We're going to watch the movies and then we're going to jump right into it without any prep, without anything like that. The person who introduces the movie is going to have some research, but they're going to do all that beforehand, and they'll explain it and talk about it in the process of talking about the movie. But we're not going to write all this stuff out. It's all going to be spur of the moment kind of stuff.
It's going to be all what we see and what we think of the movies, or whatever. That was our basis. So the first one we did together, was called Prehistoric Bimbos in Armageddon City. And that was a Todd Sheets film. And so I think there was no real, like for Indie Film Cafe, there was no real plan.
Boy, did that set the tone.
Right, it did. So it was going to be that Paul was going to pick two, and then I was going to do two, and then he was going to do two, and then right. But then we started I think we started getting antsy or something, because it changed into every other one.
Which worked
now, and now it's like completely different. We'll talk about that later. It's completely different. It's a different season. It's season 5, so it's a whole different thing. But
first one was only 40 minutes long.
Yeah,
we were still trying to figure things out, and
we used it on the we did it on my phone, and if you can see, my phone has the Podbean app up there or whatever, and that's what we used. We didn't use we didn't know anything about actually recording a podcast.
Nope.
So we just used that, and it sounded okay. There was no real. I mean, it doesn't sound nearly as clear and as good as it does now.
When it worked, it sounded okay.
Right. Oh yeah, and then there were times where we would. Well, actually, we'll get into that in a second. But there was so Paul wanted to bring in a female co-host as a third person to do the stinkometer
to balance stuff up.
Right. So he invited this girl that we call Just Jen, because that's what she wanted to be called. But she came over to Paul's, so we were doing it at Paul's house, and we were gonna watch Suburban Sasquatch was the one that we were doing. Yeah, and I had never seen it or heard of it or whatever. And I was excited to meet Jen, because Jen was somebody that Paul had known and was friends with and asked, and she liked Mystery Science Theater.
Super nice,
sweet,
pretty.
Awesome. So she came over, and I was like, okay, so I start explaining to her how we do the podcast, right? Because that's just what I do. Paul's in the kitchen making food or whatever. And so she goes, she talks about this all the time. So she'll like she was looking at me going, wait, what? Paul didn't explain to her at all that we were doing a podcast, that she was part of the podcast. She just thought she was watching a stinky movie. That's all she was expecting. And so I was like, oh, you're not want to do, did you want to do the podcast? And Paul peeks his head out of the thing and goes, well, do you? And she's kind of feels like she's kind of trapped and so she can't say no. So she's like a deer in the headlights going, okay, sure, fine. And so Paul had this idea that if he got her,
I had the vision.
If she just did it once, maybe she'd enjoy it. And she had a good time. I mean, there were times where we messed up and like we'd have to re-record the thing or something, and that pissed her off because we had to rewatch the movie and stuff, and that pissed everybody off. And then there was then it just sort of kind of came from there. She didn't like any of the ones that had like too much like disgusting sex stuff or whatever. So we did a movie called Ski Wolf. That was I picked it, and it was a Chris Seaver movie, and it was a fun movie, but there was a scene that just kind of went a little too long.
Too long.
Yeah, and she just did not like it. It felt uncomfortable.
It was cringy.
But then again, and this is the first season, and the first season had Thanksgiving, which had a scene that I thought was pretty cringy, just like a shit in the coffee scene. Don't mess with my coffee.
That really got under your skin.
It did. So like we did the first season, and Jen was a part of that, and that was wonderful. We had 3 guests, whatever. And then at the end of the day, like, or into the season, she's just like, before we do the final like wrap up thing, I've got something to tell you guys. And Paul knew it was coming. Is like, she can't devote time to this as much as we could. And, and she was just going to have to be like a guest, for the show. So she's come back in every season so far, including this one already. So we love her to death. She will always be a part of Indie Film Cafe.
The thing it was very important to me because, I had seen all the other kind of, shows that were out there on YouTube that are going over movies and things like that. They were very similar to us as far as the way that it's presented. I mean, 2 nerdy white guys who collect a bunch of films and yap about them like nerds. That has been done many, many, many times. So for me, it was very important that we distinguish ourselves by having a little bit more diversity. So I figure we got the nerdy white guy thing covered. Let's try to bring in more women. Let's try to bring in more people of color. Let's try to bring in more, LGBT people, anyone who's different than we are, so we can get a different view of all these movies that we're watching, and also to hopefully bring in a different audience so that it's more inclusive. You know what I mean? And it casts a wider net.
It's funny, Paul says this, but we had Paige, who was in the LGBTQ community, and yet we didn't show her LGBTQ movies at all.
We only got like 3 movies.
2, I think. Was it 2, 3?
2,
was
yeah.
It 3? It was. I
think we've shown her a couple. We didn't get her on the show more than a couple times, but then she moved.
But then she moved, and now she lives in Florida, and we miss her. But like, yeah. So, maybe one day we'll do one, or whatever. But we haven't really played around with a lot of that because we still got a lot of movies to show.
Yeah, it's interesting because season 2 left us without another co-host, and we're like, well, what's going to happen? Well, at the same time,
hold on. Let's hold off on season 2 for right now because I want to. What is a stinkometer? People maybe they don't know what that is. I know what it is, but maybe they don't. I was confused by it, but now I understand it. So explain to me what a stinkometer is and what films in season 1 rated on that stinkometer.
Okay, well, I decided that since most of these other shows, they do sort of like a simple 1 to 10 where 10 means it was the really, really good film and 1 means it's a really, really bad film. I thought it'd be interesting if we reversed that and said, okay, 1 is a really, really good film And 10 is a really, really bad film because it's more stink. The stinkier it is, the higher the
Right.
number. Now, it's a little confusing because with Jonathan and I, we happen to love movies that are really, really stinky. So we had to explain that even though a movie can be really bad, enjoyment isn't really the important thing so much as, how good it is. You know what I mean? Or does it achieve what it's supposed to achieve?
So to use the example, you said what movie? For season 1, it was Fateful Findings, which Paul had found for us.
What a bing.
It was a fateful finding for us all.
Neil Breen, baby.
And it is awful. It is terrible, but it is so much fun.
Yes.
And it's enjoyable. Like, I could watch it again. Like, I'm okay with that. Just Jen, not so much, but that's the thing. Like, some people can take Neil Breen, and some people, like Rebecca Reinhardt, who's part of our crew, wants to do a Neil Breen movie, and that's, but she's probably going to rate it high with us, but also say how much she enjoys it.
I think she might have a little bit better understanding of Neil Breen after watching some of the other movies that we've shown her. David the Rock Nelson.
Hey, everybody. Sorry, internet issues. It does happen. We all sorry. Don't know why, but yeah. So we are back. 16 minutes in, and it shuts down. But Paul, you were discussing like Neil Breen. You brought up David the Rock Nelson and stuff like that. So please continue.
Yeah. So basically, I was saying that our buddy Just Jen, had a much better appreciation for Neil Breen after seeing some of the other movies that we ended up, submitting to her. But usually we made sure that they were a lot more fun. It was actually really, really good to have Just Jen on there because it kind of gave us some parameters about what we can show for Indie Film Cafe and what we decided was probably more appropriate for another show. And because of that, we ended up branching off and doing other shows. So we actually had an entire movie or an entire show of movies called What the Fuck Fridays, which were movies that were a little too wacky, a little too crazy, a little too sexy, a little too violent, a little too gory to show Just Jen. And that's kind of where that came from.
You don't think she'd appreciate Pink Flamingos?
I don't think so. Yeah. So,
or the Greasy Strangler? God damn.
She might enjoy the Greasy Strangler.
No. I don't know. Maybe.
So how do you guys pick the people then? Then how do you decide, like, let's say you want me on there. How do you know I, John Ward, would like the movie or dislike the movie that you're going to show? How do you pick the person, like reach out to them to say, hey, how would you like to watch this stinky movie?
We don't really know what the reaction is going to be, and that's led to some interesting things here and there. But it's been interesting because actually Jonathan has been finding, because of Zoom, Jonathan's been able to reach out and get folks for the show that we normally would not have been able to do, because usually we've been doing stuff that was local. That was the best thing about Just Jen, in addition to being wonderful, is that she was local. So we were initially stuck with people who were local, and then of course the big C word happened. And that sort of changed everything,
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So that does bring us into, like we were talking before about season 2. Mm-hmm. Season 2, what happened was when Jen left, we had to basically figure out what we were going to do. So the first episode, which I hated, first couple, was just me and Paul for a little bit, and we couldn't find anybody, a third person. And then I think you brought the first person in, right? I think it was your buddy James came in, and James came and did a great job. But you did poor,
was appalled at the movies we showed him.
I know, but he had Hard Rock Zombies and
Hard Rock Zombies. Oh,
and Blood Predator. So there's
Blood Predator.
So suffice to say, we have never seen James back again. And I wonder why.
In all fairness, he's a busy man.
Yeah. But I see, that's the thing. Paul drives people to Louisiana to get to escape.
Blood Predator will do that.
You know, like.
Well, so let's. So
that
for
was
people,
the last one you watched.
I mean, for people to understand the stinkometer. So, like I said, I didn't understand it at first because to me, 10 is good and 1 is bad. You were flipping it, and then one day I understood, which is if somebody were to walk into a crime scene and they're just like, "Oh my God, this is awful," and their partner would go, "What would you rate this smell, the stink, from 1 to 10?" And they go, "Oh my God, this is a 10. This is so awful. Yeah. It's a 10. 1 would be like, "Oh, it's not bad at all. Whatever, it's okay." 5 would be, yeah, let's not stay in here too long, but we could deal with it. 10 would be, we need to leave. We got to get out of this place. It's horrible. I'm going to throw up. And that's what I realized what you guys were doing with the stinkometer, because it just, like I said, at first I was confused by it, and then it made sense to me. So for people that are watching this, so that's how it works. So 1 is good, 5 is
or
mediocre,
great, like excellent,
like excellent, yeah. And then 5 is mediocre, average in the middle, and then 10 is stinky, horrible, awful. This is you got to wear a mask. It's so bad.
Right.
So that's how the stinkometer works.
Right, and we allow half scores as well, so that we can help differentiate. So 5.5 or 6.5. 4.5, that kind of thing.
Yeah, if you can't tell which one you want to do, you want to do a 5 or 6, you do 5.5, you know, or whatnot. But you know, and we do a lot of those. Actually, we do a lot more of those than I imagined that we would do.
And let it be a lesson to you: do not sit back and just think, "Oh, I better not rate it really high because the next one might be worse or whatever." No, you got to go with your gut, man.
Yeah. So to explain that, Actium Maximus, which was the first episode back from on season 2, I thought Paul would not give me a 30 on the first episode, so wouldn't give us, you know, because we have 3 people that rate it. So I thought he wouldn't. So I went lower than what I should have. After watching that, after the whole season, I regretted it.
You regretted it ever since.
Yeah. There's a couple other ones, Barn of the Blood Llama, and a few other ones that I think I held back on my stuff because I thought, man, there's no way he's going to do this now. And, you know, of course he did. And so never underestimate Paul. If a movie is terrible and stinky, he's planned that on purpose.
What fun.
Yeah.
So do you
Actium Maximus, not so much.
Do you aim for 10s? Is that because, Jonathan, you mentioned to me, you've sent me messages going, "Oh my God, we had a full 30." So you have 3 people all voting 10, which would be 30. But if you have 2 people, right, then you're aiming for 20. If it's 1, you aim for 10. So do you aim for 10? Is like 10 the goal to hit? Or is it still okay to do an 8, a 5?
Not all the time. Because we throw in good ones too.
Like, what are some good ones?
In the beginning. Well, okay, real quick before going to the good ones, I do want to explain this. So in the first season, that was not the intent, was not to get 30s. Like, that was not the, you know, we weren't like, "Oh man, we're going to have to out Trump each other on this stuff," right? But what our plan was we saw it and we were like, when we got a 30, which was Fateful Findings, we were like, "Oh my God, can any other movie like live up to this?" But we weren't ever trying to do that. Now we do a little bit more. We do have a little bit more fun trying to outdo each other, you know, on what else, because it's fun. It's fun to kind of do that, but not all the time.
Exactly. And I noticed after going back and listening to the first season, it seemed like the most fun shows we did and the best conversations we had were around the worst movies. You know, movies that were good, generated some discussion. The ones that are kind of in the middle were kind of meh. And it just, the shows themselves seemed kind of meh. But the ones that were really bad or really good seemed to really work. And as I've told Moody and other folks over and over and over and over again, I love movies that are really, really good and really, really bad. I'm just bored with mediocrity. So, and that's a perfect example of why.
But what Paul thinks of mediocre and mediocrity, I might not think the same way.
Right.
So I will show him a movie and he'll be like, oh, that's kind of boring, kind of mediocre. I'll be like, what are you talking about? It's one of the best movies I've seen, whatever. So we do that all the time, sometimes vice versa. So.
And that's the beauty of the Stinkometer score, because you never know what's going to happen, because what you think is great, somebody else thinks is terrible, somebody else thinks is mediocre. So you're going to get a variety of scores for all these films. And that's the beauty,
Okay. So let's take a step back. Let's look at you guys met, you become friends, you love watching movies together. You go, let's start like a YouTube channel. Let's start this whole thing. You come up with the title Indie Film Cafe. How do you go about that? Like, I'm a film fan. I would like to start my own YouTube channel. I would like to review movies. What goes into that? What do you think that people would be interested in? How did you guys decide what to put up there, and how did you go about it for a novice, for somebody who's really interested in doing it but just has no idea?
Well, first of all, the YouTube thing came after the podcast. So the podcast was first. And to explain to people how to make a podcast real quick, basically we do Audacity. So we put, we'll have like a microphone, and only one microphone. Everybody will talk into it. We'll do the show. We'll cut. We'll do like our theme song, our theme music. We'll come back and we'll talk about the movie some more, about what we thought or whatever. Then we kind of have our rating at the end of the movie after the last 10 minutes. And then we might have a little extra where we talk to the person about what they're up to or whatever, if they're a special guest like that. The YouTube shows like What the Fuck Friday and whatnot, we use usually my iPhone right now. We may use Paul's digital camera at some point if we want like more HD stuff, easier to do or whatever. We've used tons of other equipment, so it just depends on what you have.
And that's the thing, is that the other big change is that we ended up getting the studio, and that changed a lot of what we ended up doing. That happened somewhere along the line in season 1. Where I work, it's just a bunch of whole historic buildings, and there was one that is, I guess they just couldn't rent it out for whatever reason, and they said, well, if you guys want to use it, go ahead and use it. So we was like, sure. So we set up our studio there. We got our TVs, we got our Blu-ray players and everything, and that's where we hang out. We watch our movies and things right then and there. And we could do photography there, we could do videos there, we do all sorts of stuff. So that opened up this thing for us. So we weren't just like showing up to each other's houses and that was about it. We do that still occasionally from time to time, but we have a central help with us as well.
Also, to go to your talk, John, your question. So when we do the YouTube show for a lot of times, for like when we have you come out and stuff like now, we will do this through Zoom because it's just easier to get people together. Then it's very easy to just cut stuff together, cut the logo together. Also, another thing is finding people to do logos and or music. Paul generally can do his own music and can do his own logos, as well. So a lot of times for his own shows, like Forgotten Horror Classics or Sexploitation Sleazecast, he has his own stuff. So he handles everything himself and takes care of it all, which is a load off my back, but also is something where it shows it is Paul's show. All my other shows, I have a music guy. My buddy Jeff Brassfield, who does a lot of the music, and he does it for everything. He's done it for Film Freaks. He did it for, I think he did it for Film Freaks. He did it for a bunch of Criterion Watch, all these different shows. He'll just send me the music. I'll put it in for the first, 30 seconds or whatever, and then we'll start the show. So that's, I mean, it's fairly simple. If you want to start a YouTube show, just get your freaking iPhone, because everybody's got a smartphone in some way. Even Paul has a smartphone. Took a while, and it took a while for me too to get one. And basically just put stuff together, start shooting, because you're not that there's no reason not to at this day and age if you actually want to create a show.
Right. And, the production aspect of it is both the work behind it, but it's also kind of the fun part too. So there's a lot of creativity that you get to do. But what really turned it into a show, I would have to say, is Mr. Moody and his desire to schedule everything. I'm more of I'd rather just do it and put it out when I feel like it kind of person. Whereas Moody's like, no, we have to do it the same time every week, blah, 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 get it all scheduled out. That's really what turns it into a show versus just whenever you feel like throwing something out there. And, that tends to get more people because when they know that you're putting out a show at a certain time, they'll know to look for
Right.
it.
Well, and I have to explain that. Thank you, Paul, for mentioning that, because in the beginning with like What the Fuck Fridays, we did not have consistency and we did not have a show really. We had it came out whenever Paul and I felt like getting together and doing it, and that was because I think that was 2018, 19-ish area.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a time where I was sort of and Paul were still sort of learning, and we were still sort of like kind of trying to find our footing. But when I moved out to LA, and I guess we'll get into that later, but that's when things really started revving up and it became shows and
Mm-hmm.
and scheduling and everything. I kind of learned that
And
stuff.
it's a little bit less fun because there's more pressure on you. But on the other hand, I think the end results are much better. And I think it ends up being a better show. But I'm going to say one thing. You'd better love what it is that you're talking about. Because if it's something that you don't want to put the work in, time in, and everything without getting immediate results, you're not going to last. It's just not going to be something you're going to want to do because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of effort, takes a lot of time, and you are not going to get showered with thousands and thousands and thousands of people saying how wonderful you are. You're going to be screaming into the void for a long time. And at some point, people are going to start coming in and start talking to you about stuff. And it's been nice when people recognize you and everything, and you get to talk to other people like, oh yeah, I heard about that. But it takes time. You have to build. And, people who expect immediate results, they're going to be very disappointed.
Yeah. And I'm to go back to Jonathan and scheduling. He's like the scheduling king. I mean, he's shown me his schedules and it's like, oh my God, I have a hard enough time keeping a spreadsheet just for my bills. I can't imagine doing it for something like this. And I've always found it funny when Jonathan contacts me and says, hey, can you review this movie with me on Wednesday? I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll watch the movie. I'll take some notes. Maybe we'll do it. And then I'll be like, well, when's it coming out? And he goes, oh, November. That's like 6 months from now. And he's like, well, yeah, because it's for the Thanksgiving special that we're going to be, it's that type of thing. Or, Christmas Evil. Let's do that. Then it'll be like, oh, cool. Then it'll be like December.
We learned the hard way. It's better to do as much as you can up front so that you're not pushed to the very end, because we missed a few deadlines early on, and that's never any fun.
Well, you also, so it's funny, John, that you kind of say that about me, but it was really Paul's idea. Paul was the one who originally was like, okay, well, maybe we should bank some, in the original like
it makes
plan.
sense. Yeah.
And and we've done that too, John, you and I, when we've recorded stuff. We would just record 3-4 episodes. That way it's already done and we can just say, okay, this just needs to be edited and put out, So.
Right, especially early on when we were very dependent on who we could get locally to show up to the studio and say, well, we've got, say, Joe Torek, let's do a couple of movies while we're here. We'll put the one out next month and we'll save the next one for later on down the road.
Speaking of Joe Turk, he was one of the, so we did What the Fuck Friday, and then we did a show called Film Freaks TV.
Oh, there you go.
And Film Freaks was actually supposed to be a podcast. And it was on, Blog Talk Radio for a bit. It was, I think we did 1 or 2 episodes, maybe 2. And then we were just like, okay, we need to do a video show of this because we felt more comfortable with
And
that.
Blog Talk
And,
Radio
you
had
know,
some weird issues going on that we didn't
Yeah.
like, as I recall.
well, it just costs money to actually, it costs like, I think $45 a month or something. It was ridiculous. So there was just no way I could afford to do that every month, or whatever. So we ended up shooting the videos, and we had Joe, we had Alfred Crane, and we had who both are now on my Hollywood Boulevard podcast, and we had Paul and me, and we started that, and it became like, was Paul and I's show, but we'd have guests come in and talk, and
John
it's a lot of
Carpenter,
fun.
right?
Yeah, we did not the thing. We did the fog,
The Fog.
for the first episode, and it was a lot of fun. Like, we enjoyed it, and we still enjoy doing it. It's just, we would have people, like 4 people, and we would do it. You even had a thing that said Film Freaks, and would have like a little cafe thing that, fortunately we never get it in there anymore in the
Right.
shot. But
And it was a different show. So Indie Film Cafe is kind of independent horror, independent stuff that most of which are, some of which are good, some of which are terrible. The What the Fuck Friday show, which is the crazy over the top stuff. Film Freaks is more movies that we love. So they can be more Hollywood type stuff, the sort of bigger movies that most people know about. Or if you're like myself, they're movies that I love that maybe people didn't quite remember or kind of flew under the radar.
we're never heard of.
Never heard of. And then we ended up doing Criterion Watch because we both collect Criterion movies, and those are like sort of the best of the best of the best. And we started to do that show. And and it's kind of branched out there. We joke all the time because we're like, oh, it would be great if we could do a show on this, because just do vampires or just do shark movies or just
We
do Yeti
did
movies.
do shark movies,
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
have a
yeah,
show called Shark Attack Sunday. And John Ward's been on a couple of those episodes. So
Yes, I have.
Mhm.
thank you.
Well, so
you
how do
actually
you?
did one yourself?
Oh yeah. I did Jaws: The Revenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, well, thank you. I enjoyed doing that one. It was fun. And so, I mean, you guys are talking about a lot of shows. How do you come up with Hooked on, Hitchcock? How do you come up with these shows? You have a lot of shows. Now, I mentioned to Jonathan in a message, it was a joke where I said, is it going to get to the point where you can no longer do any more shows? Like, you're at 100. 100 is it. There's no more time in the month or the day to do another show. How do you guys come up with these shows? Which ones will continue? Have you stopped any ones that just weren't working out? How does that whole thing work?
Yes. That's
Well,
let me explain that real quick.
Shows do take a vacation.
Yeah. Well, there was one I know is not coming back, and that was classic horror television. And it's just because there's just not enough horror television shows and out there that I want to talk about or whatever, And I did like 2 episodes, and I wasn't even feeling it when I was doing it. So, but if those 2 episodes, the first episode, I believe, had the creator of Are You Afraid of the Dark in it. So as we're talking about it, so that was cool. If I could have done more like that, where I interview the people who made the movie or something, I would definitely bring it back, or the show. But unfortunately, it's just stuff like that. There's sometimes there was one I was doing because I was stuck in the pandemic, so I was doing a whole thing where I was just reviewing for like 10 minutes, or 30 minutes or whatever, movies that I was watching while I was stuck in the pandemic. That became sort of Quick Review Thursday, which Paul and I started doing because we were bored, and we were like, let's, during the pandemic, we're like, let's start doing that. But Paul, explain some of the other ones, how those came about.
Well, one of the ones I do want to give a little love to, and it's probably the one that I'm most proud and happy that we ended up doing, is the one that we call Indie Film Cafe Spotlight.
Mm.
And that's where, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback from that. That's where we actually get to interview some of the folks who make the movies that we end up reviewing. So writers, directors, actors, all those folks. You know, Jonathan has his connections out there in Hollywood, which is really, really nice. He's one of those guys who talks to everybody. He knows everybody. So he's able to reach out and to get, you know, say a Robin Sidney to come on that we otherwise, I mean, when am I going to ever talk to Robin Sidney? Never. So it was just a great opportunity. So we've been able to sort of marry the shows that we love to, or the movies we love to see, also talking with some of the folks like yourself, making the Xmas movies, and you know, we'd love to get Neil Breen. That's like one of our big prizes we'd love to get someday.
We did have John for the first season of Indie Film Cafe Spotlight because we went out to Las Vegas on the way to LA, and I asked John and Julianne Prescott to come out.
Yeah.
And so we got to have both of them on 2 separate days, I believe. And the first one we watched, I believe, was Stink of Flesh for What the Fuck Friday with you. And then we also did your interview. So that was pretty cool. Like
at a very seedy, shadowy motel that I was very scared about. And it was just like, oh my God, who are these guys? Where am I going? You know, the door creaked when I opened it. It was all dark. Yeah, that was fun. I really enjoyed that movie because that was the Stink of Flesh. And my review on that was the flesh did not stink because it was actually a good film. It was interesting. I was very surprised.
Hey, come on, really we had pizza. It wasn't that scary.
Yeah. But yeah, and that place was like, they had its own like little casino in it, but only doing what is it? The slots. You know,
and it was so full of cigarettes. It was so
awful. Yeah,
it's one of those places. Yeah.
But it was cheap, you know. So.
And funny thing is that was actually the basis for when Paul and I created a show called Short Film Saturdays. So we met up with a friend of ours, Ophelia Rain, who's in the adult film business and everything, and we hung out with her. And then afterwards, I was watching one of her movies. And I was like, it was a short, you know, and I was like, we should review like short films. And he was like, that's a great idea. Let's do it. So we started that show up. And I mean, we like, that's the thing when John jokes, like whatever, the funny thing is there may be a time where we're kind of too busy or like, there's just too much going on. But what'll happen generally is we might take a break, you know, so we'll try to get up to 10 episodes or 12 or whatever, finish it off. Then we'll take a break from that. We'll go concentrate on another show or other shows. Then you'll take a break.
They revolve in and out.
They'll revolve in and out. And so,
and I got to throw out a little bit of love to Ophelia Rain too, because she was also the person that I bounced the original idea off for Sexploitation Sleazecast. I said, what about doing stinky movies that are more adult in nature? Because there's a lot of directors who, especially in the 60s and 70s, you know, they weren't able to make ends meet by just doing their regular monster movies. So they turned into the burgeoning adult movies business and started to make, you know, X-rated movies. But being who they are, they couldn't stop themselves from doing horror elements too. So they would make these really weird horror movie X-rated mashups.
You try to show me one of those. I feel like there was one we watched that we never recorded the
Doris Wishman.
Yeah, I don't know if that will be a Sexploitation Sleazecast, but it made me feel really sleazy and weird. And I was like, I don't really want to watch this with you.
Oh, there's so much fun though. And the thing is, they're so bad. Some of those movies are like the worst. And so she thought that was a fun idea because nobody ever talks about that stuff. So I was like, yeah, let's do that. And I was like, well, I'd love to get an X-rated film star to also talk about that. But, you know, again, it was a matter of trying to get whoever you could get. And then it ended up one of our mutual friends, Rebecca Reinhardt, was like, oh, that sounds awesome. Please get me involved in that. And then she went off with that. She
does like a million podcasts too. Like we're not the only ones that she does. She has her own group of people that she does stuff with. So she'll do her SOBs who love SOV. She'll do all these other shows that she does. They just started a new podcast with a bunch of amazing women like Angel Bradford, who I think she started that podcast because of our podcast.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like you said, John, that we kind of influenced you to do that, or whatever. But and we love influencing our friends to become podcasters. I think sometimes there's a little bit of a jealousy or something, but I'm like, the more the merrier, everybody who watches my show might watch your show, we all talk about different shit.
Yeah, so you just try to do something a little different. I don't want to copy you guys exactly, and you probably don't want to copy somebody who came before you. So obviously things are going to kind of flow into one another. If I review, I don't know, Star Wars, you may review Star Wars. If something like that, it's a popular movie. So that's very possible that's going to happen. But you try to mix it up and do something original. So what do you guys do? So now you got a lot of names out there, Rebecca Reinhardt, Robin Sidney, Just Jen. What are the qualifications? Is kind of a weird word because we're not looking at a resume. But what do you look for in a person to come onto the show and review it for you? Are they just friends? Are they people in the industry? How do you choose? Like, who's Robin Sidney? Like, why is she on your show?
Paul,
One thing I can tell you is needed is that you have to be able to talk with us, because both Jonathan and I are blabbers. We will talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and you need to be somebody who can get up there and talk right there with us, because otherwise you'll just be buried in the avalanche of gab. So it's very important that you can do that. One of the things I wanted to bring up in season 2 was that I ended up getting a NASA intern by the name of Lenore, who is a very, very sweet girl, very, very young, very, very innocent, never really watched very much of anything. And I managed to rope her into our movies, and she ended up having a lot of fun. But because she was a NASA person and she's got this big giant brain and knows all about science, her angle, which was different than anybody else, was to sit there and nitpick all of the incredibly incorrect science that was happening in most of these movies. She would debunk stuff, and just had a lot of fun with that.
I don't think she planned that either. Like, I think that sort of was just how she is personally. So we would talk about it, and we would talk about the movies. He usually picked science movies, specifically like they're the giant the giant claw, things like that.
Oh.
And she would look at that movie and she would say, "Oh, that's ridiculous. This the airspeed velocity of blah 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 and stuff like that."
I love stuff
would
like
just
that.
Be like,
I love that. Like the guy who analyzed the movie
it's
Them.
awesome. So like, there's this subplot about them fighting the giant claw with sonic atom ray guns. Exactly what that is. So she will sit there and talk about 7 or 8 minutes about what it is, how it works, what it really means, and how it's poorly represented in the film, but in theory it means something totally different, and it's cool.
Yeah, I mean,
well, that's what they did in the movie Them. The movie about the giant ants from the 50s. Is scientists later looked at that movie and said those ants could never exist because they would crush themselves. Like, they're too big and their legs would not be able to support their bodies. So which I love that type of stuff. There's I might have mentioned this to Jonathan, but there was a book a long time ago that came out when I worked at Barnes & Noble, and it was a scientist looking at movies. And the two films that he compared together is one was Outbreak, the movie with Dustin Hoffman, and the other one is The Devil Bat with Bela Lugosi.
God, Devil Bat's fun.
And it's I love Devil Bat. I have a poster of it in my room. And and the scientist said Outbreak is completely incorrect. Like 99% of everything they're saying is totally wrong because they're saying it. That's the problem. Devil Bat, Lugosi takes the little bat, puts it in the machine, throws the switch, electricity happens, he goes back out, bat is now this big. And then he sets it on its way for revenge. And the guy said, Devil Bat could happen. It's completely could happen because it's never explained. So so you can't really say it's not correct. So I love it. So with her coming on there and talking about like Giant Claw, one of the greatest bad movies ever made, I think is absolutely hilarious. But when you
it was great, and I had never seen it before either, and Paul introduced us both to it, and I loved it. I had such a great time. I know Seb loves it. He talks about that stuff, that movie. And I mean, I thought that's just the wackiest looking, the creature, whatever it is,
and that's the other thing that's been really good as far as the way that Jonathan and I work. Jonathan knows a lot more about the people movies, throughout the 2000s and into the 90s. We kind of overlap a lot of stuff in the 80s and maybe into the 90s. And a lot of the stuff that I know is all the older stuff, because that's what I grew up on as a little kid. So all that stuff back into the 60s and 50s and even into the 40s is sort of my domain. So we're able to bring in different movies that, he knows more about something that happened in 2000 than I do, but then I know something more what happened in, say, 1962 than what he does. So we're able to bring in stuff from both areas. And it's a nice feeling when, he can show me a movie that I've never even heard of, but it fits in with our show and it's great and I enjoy it. And then the same thing when I bring him an old stinker that he's never heard of and discovers it. And it's been fun, because that's part of the show too, is allowing the audience to also discover these movies with us, because that's been what the crux of it is, that, okay, we have fun with these movies and we have fun with a lot, but we're telling you about it so that you can go out and enjoy it yourself. And that is always why we include the information of where you can get these movies, preferably from the audience themselves or the artists themselves, so that you can experience them, because these are movies that, even if they're not great, or in some ways are just bad, they're still lots of fun, and you should check them out, and we don't want them to fade away into obscurity.
Well, right. And what I wanted real quick about that before we get to I think you've got another question for us, John, about that, is that when I started to kind of come up with these ideas, like I showed the movie Ankle Biters, which I had seen and I was a fan of since MySpace. I actually knew the guy who made it, the guys who made it and stuff like that. So it was wonderful for me to like get this movie out there, or whatever, help the people. A lot of what I'm doing even today is introducing the audience to maybe movies in the early 2000s or late 2000s or whatever that people had never may not have seen. But like Killer Biker Chicks was the one that Kate Phoenix watched with us. It was a terrible movie. It was bad. It got a 30. But it was, a movie that that not many people had seen. I don't think Paul had ever heard of it. And, it introduced him to this whole new, thing that he had never heard of, because I interviewed these people in 2006 to whatever. And I would be looking back at old episodes I have, and I interview people who did like Stupid Teenagers Must Die, a movie that's on the list for coming to, right?
Well, we both have long lists.
I know. And so that's the thing is like, and we try not to cross, but there's going to be times where both of us have the same movie. There'll be times I'll be like, oh, I want to do this movie. And he'd be like, oh, I've got that on my list. Right. And I'm like, well, your list is too long. It's fine.
And there are certain artists that he's seen everything and I've seen everything. Like we've all seen all the Ed Wood movies. We're big Chris Seaver fans. We've seen all of those. People like that where we cross over a lot.
We might cross over on that, but like Paul will always do like Ray Dennis Steckler, most likely, or Dave Waskovich, or who I actually know, Dave. I've interviewed him years ago, and
I didn't know that at the time. It was great.
And I've known him, and I worked with him. I actually wrote one of his movies, co-wrote one of his movies. I did not, but I was part of the team that wrote it. And it's wonderful. I love that. But like, that's the thing. He'll always do Dave Waskovich. He'll always do David or Donald G. Jackson. And well, though I did do one, but that was because I really, really badly wanted to do it. And stuff like that. And that's the thing. Like we will do, the same, a lot of the same, most likely not a lot of the same directors,
but
sometimes
there's oodles of this stuff out there, oodles and oodles and oodles of it. And a lot of this is stuff that just never came out on DVD / never came out on Blu-ray / probably won't come out the next iteration of whatever else technology is going to give us, because, you know, there only seems to be doing the most popular Hollywood stuff. Well, we don't do the big popular Hollywood stuff.
We do for Hollywood Boulevard, but you're not a part
for a
of that.
different show. But I mean, heck, a lot of our stuff we do that Mystery Science Theater and Riff Tracks don't even touch, you know?
That was
So
our
we do
logo.
occasionally.
That was our
Yeah.
tagline, is we do the movies that Riff Tracks won't do, you know?
Right.
Like,
Well, so okay,
we do them, but we, for a specific show. We now have a Patreon only show where we will try to do some of the more popular ones that people know about, like The Room, and put that out there so that they can hear us. But, you know, Patreon, so we can actually get a buck or two, so we can actually keep making the show.
well, excuse me. So I had said earlier, you know, like bringing up Robin Sidney and Rebecca Reinhardt and stuff like that, and saying like, well, why are them? I know who they are. I just want the audience to know that I do know who they are. I even worked with Robin. So so basically, you guys know all these movies. You guys watch all these movies. You guys love all these movies. So my question with them was, because I don't think it actually got answered completely, is why people like that. Like what do you look for in a guest to come on board? Is it like a friend? Is it a filmmaker? Is it like why reach out to Robin Sidney, or why reach out to me? Why reach out to Rebecca Reinhardt?
Okay, so Robin Sidney was on our Indie Film Cafe spotlight. So she was a girl that we were going to interview, and we did. And it actually gets us a lot of good, like, people look up Robin Sidney on YouTube, and then, you know, they find our interview, and then they, you know, and she was a delight and just very easy to talk to. And the interview was amazing. And, you know, I love it when people who are fans of a actor, I think that started where I went to when I was in LA before I actually moved out there. I went to visit, and I met up with Sheldon Lettich, and we had been talking, Paul and I had been talking about doing this show. And I was like, let me try this where I'm going to interview Sheldon. And I'm a big fan of his. So I picked him because I was a fan and wanted to interview him. And that's what happened with me and Paul. We would switch off for a little bit. Now we interview the guests together, you know, and that's what we made it sure of, so that not one person's interviewing. But if Paul found somebody that he was friends with, that he wanted, and I didn't know who the person was, I would still interview with the person, and I would just ask probably different questions than what Paul would ask.
Yeah. And with regards to Robin Sidney, I just, you know, I've had a major crush on Robin Sidney forever.
Who hasn't?
So ever since, yeah.
She's very sweet. She's very nice. Yeah.
She's a sweetheart. Oh my God.
And just let people know, she, you know, she's with Charles Band, and she works for Full Moon, and she's been in a lot of Full Moon movies. And I got to meet her when I worked on Evil Bong 777. And it was very nice, because I asked her, you know, would you can't call him Mr. Band, that's his dad. So I would say, you know, would Charlie mind signing some stuff for me? And for all people, he loves red vines. So if you ever get to meet him, bring him red vines. And she said, yeah, he'll sign stuff. Just wait till the end. You know, when we're done, I'll let him know, and he'll sign stuff for you. And It's like, okay, so now no bother anymore. We can make the movie. I know that stuff will get signed, maybe, you know, all that type of stuff. And he signed everything I asked him to sign. So he was a very nice guy. She's very sweet. I really enjoyed working on that film, and everybody on it, you know, Brooks Davis and all that stuff were really great. So so I can understand why you would. Now, how do you pick her or somebody else for the film that you want?
So that's okay. I was going to get right into that too. So, okay. So originally, as we were stating before, we kind of like asked people that we knew that we were good friends with at first, right? When we knew that they were going to come to the studio. So Paul had Lenore, who was living with them at the time, you know, and so she was just easy to get, you know, but she also had a purpose, you know, she did the science stuff. Then, you know, he had his buddy James. I had John Johnson come in, you know, for a couple episodes. We had my friend Joe Turk come in for a couple episodes. We had, you know, we'd switch off, and we had Just Jen. We had a few other people in the second season. So like that was whatever. When we went into, when basically the big C word happened, the whole world shut down. Then all of a sudden we took it. We had to figure it out. We had to figure out what we were going to do. Why don't you do Zoom? And at first I was weary about it because all I knew was you could use it on your phone. I didn't know it was an app you could use on your computer. Paul was like, it's, you know, you could use it on your computer. So I bought Zoom, you know, for $15 a month. I was like, let's record episodes. And what we would do is Paul would record stuff. He had Zoom. He'd record stuff with him and everything. And he'd pick people that, you know, either he knew that he was good friends with, that he knew could handle the stuff, or he picked some of my friends that he was friends with, like Lila and Bobby, who we were both good friends with. He asked them to come on for a show. I would ask people in the film industry, but that wasn't a, you know, that's not a prerequisite. You don't have to be in the industry. We just shot Film Freaks with a friend of mine who's just a local guy. He has nothing to do with the film industry. And I was just trying him out, and we watched Donnie Darko and he liked it. I mean, he loved the movie before, but he liked doing the show. But he'll probably only come back for Film Freaks. You know, he doesn't like horror films and stuff, which is fine. But if you can get G. Larry Butler, you get G. Larry Butler, especially since you already covered a G. Larry Butler movie first season. And that's been one of the best tie-ins between Indie Film Cafe and the Spotlight, is if we can actually get some of those folks to come on the show too, that makes it even more fun. We did that too with Jeremiah Morehouse, who Paul introduced me to through was it a biker warrior babe versus the zombie babies from hell. And
there's a title.
I gave it a high stink rating. And actually, that's one of the ones I regret doing, because looking back at it, I was like, that's not nearly as bad as a lot of these. It's more fun. But what is it? But I asked him to come on the show this year, and he's come on a couple of times already. And, you know, and that was the thing, you know, G. Larry Butler, Jackie Hall. We've had Jackie on the show. We've reviewed a few of her stinky movies, and she is not afraid to say that movie is stinky. Like, she's not afraid of anything. She'll be the first to tell you that, you know. And so there you go. I mean, we just ask whoever wants to come on, and sometimes they're in the industry. Rebecca, I asked her to come on, and then we had such a great time with her. I asked her to join 80s horror films. Paul loved her and said, would you like to join Sexploitation Sleaze Cast? And you know, the rest is sort of history. You know, we keep asking whoever we ask you to come on, and you know, you could have been like no at first, you know, anyway, you know, like I don't.
Well, at first I was, if you remember, at first I was a little kind of sketchy about it because well, this will be, so I have two questions, but I'm going to flip them because since I'm talking about this. So I didn't want to come on and talk about movies from people that we know. And that was my thing, is I didn't want to review a Todd Sheets movie because I'm friends with him on Facebook, because we've talked a couple times, because I've promoted his films and gave the crowdfunding, and now we're going to review one of his films, and let's say I didn't like it. Am I honest, or do I lie and go, oh, it's wonderful, when it wasn't? Or do I say it's awful and then kind of maybe have him unfriended me and not speak to me? So do you guys ever fear that type of stuff?
Well, Paul doesn't fear it at all. Paul does not give a fuck. I will say that. And I know this from experience of talking to him a million times about this subject, because this subject does come up. Yes, I'm friends with a lot of the people. And so we will review the movies and we will be honest 100%. It's gotten me unfriended and then refriended by people in the film industry. It's weird. It's such a strange thing. And that's fine. Like, look, at least I'm being honest, right, about my feelings. And we're not out there to just attack, you know, like that's not our plan. Our plan, we don't want to start a whole show where we're just like making fun of something, you know, or whatever. We celebrate. Yeah, we celebrate these things. So if we say a movie is stinky, it's almost a badge of honor. If we say a movie is meh, then that's when you're in trouble.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. If we didn't like a movie, we would ignore it. You'd never hear us talk about it, and that's never a good sign. But integrity is very, very important. I will not go out there and say anything that I don't 100% mean, and I will back up everything I have to say with examples. I'll say, well, the lighting was bad, and remember this scene, you remember this scene, or I'll say this and that. But everybody learns. I mean, nobody walks into a movie being Stanley Kubrick. You have to learn along the way. So everybody who does has to understand this if you're in the business, and you better have to have a thick skin too. A thin-skinned person's not going to survive very long in this business. And we don't go out there and just say, "Oh, this sucks and this was stupid." We talk about all specific examples, and we back up everything we say, and we are honest about it. And that's. I don't know what else you could ask about that. If you're putting something out there, you want honest, feedback, I would think.
Yes, but as we know, there are certain filmmakers out there that are incredibly sensitive to any sort of bad feedback. I mean, I've seen in movies and TV shows where they joke where the person goes, I want feedback, but only positive feedback. And that's what they want, is just positive feedback. So if you do happen to say, yeah, that lighting wasn't great, or why was that walking scene going on for 10 minutes? That's a problem, in the movie. And they may be, well, what are you talking about? How dare you? How dare you, sir? And unfriend.
Right. Yeah, well, here's the thing.
Okay.
If that's fine. And we're still going to talk about it. And we're still going to do another movie by them. And we're going to still, say our honest feedback, if we feel that a movie should be discussed, But there are going to be some times that I'm like, I'm not interested in reviewing this film because, like, why would I want to take time to talk about a movie I didn't like, Unless there's a good reason for it, sometimes generally there is a really good reason, and that is because every movie should be judged, right? So I'll give you an example, and I won't say names or anything, but we did review a film, Paul and I did, of a guy that sent us a movie to review, and he sent us a lot of swag and he did a review, right? He was like thinking, oh man, I've gotten nothing but positive reviews on my film, so these guys are going to probably do the same thing. We did not. We said it was not a movie that we liked exactly. We still have the poster hanging up. We still talk nice things, like we still think that the director is talented in his own way, or whatever. We just think that the movie was not for us, and that is exactly said that.
And we still say, this is our opinion. You should go out and buy it and form your own opinion.
But that's the swag, though. The swag is supposed to give the good review. Oh, look, I'm giving you stuff. Right. Give me a good review.
That's the bribe.
Right. I signed it for you, so give me a good review. No, that's not the way it works. Because otherwise, like, what's the point? Somebody was telling me once that they wanted to start a podcast on our show, but only do positive reviews. And I said, why? Like, that doesn't sound like any fun. And that person didn't join our group, but that's fine. And and it wasn't you, John. You're very honest with your show with Reviews After Midnight.
If you watch the 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag review, I don't think I could have been any more negative from that film. And
Right.
that was a second chance movie too. I mean, I already went in hating it. But I figured, you know what? I saw it 30 years ago when it originally came out, and walked out of the screening, a free screening I walked out of with my friends, and thought, you know what? I'll give it a chance. I like Pesci. The idea is not horrible. And I hated it. I just did not like it. And oh, well. But I didn't have a problem with it because it's a big movie. It's a big Hollywood movie. Right. Who am I going to hurt? It made its money back. But if I were to review something from one of the people that we know on Facebook,
right,
could be, because I've had like 4 or 5 people recently send me links to movies going, where you watch my film, and I'm like, what do you want me to do with it? Just give you feedback, or do you want me to review it? And they're like, well, do whatever you want. And it's like, I'm not sure what to do here.
Well, it's on them. If they are sending a movie for us to review and they don't see our show and don't see how we do it, that's kind of on you. You have to understand how we do our show. This is not a fanboy thing. I'm not here to be bought, to have my integrity bought by a couple of movies that you're going to throw me that I didn't ask for. Okay, that's not how this works. If you give it to me unsolicited, you're going to get an honest opinion from me, and that's just what it's going to happen.
What's funny is like some people love that we review and we're very honest about this stuff, because what we do, and Paul sort of talked about this earlier, but like we kind of go into in-depth, look into it. I remember we just did, for What the Fuck Friday, we did Her Name Was Krista. And we're friends with the director, James L. Edwards. In fact, he's on our shows. He be as a guest interviewer.
He knows what we're about.
And he won't do like reviews by people he's friends with, because he doesn't, or movies that he's a part of, because he doesn't feel like he can be, he can kind of separate himself from it or so, right? And I get that, so I don't ask him. But what the thing is, we reviewed the movie, and one of the guys sent me a message, and I love it, Rick Germain, who's in the movie, and I'll say it straight up who it was who said this, but he was like, he loved the review because we went into the psychological aspects of the film, and not just, oh, that had some great kills, oh, that was, there was some nudity in the film, that's great, because I will call this out. There are some shows that's all they really talk about, the kills, the blood, the nudity, and they have it for like 10 minutes of a show, and I'm like, I really want more than that, and that's what we do, So if you don't want more, you can go to their shows. If you want more, you come to ours, because that's what we're going to do.
It's a nice mix, in my opinion, in that we do have fun. We do have silly comments. There is a little bit of a misty humor going on, but we do an intelligent, in-depth review of just about most of the things that we end up doing. It's going to be worth listening to, and that's kind of what makes it important. And again, it all comes back to, no matter how we rate the film, it's a movie that we think people should see, and here are the reasons why. And again, if we did not like a movie, if we hated somebody, we would just never review the film. It would never even get mentioned. It can just fade away, and who cares?
Yeah, sometimes I like doing that.
And at the very and that's why it's important, at the very end, we tie it all back in the reviews webpage. Here is where you can buy it. Okay, so anyone who's got a bad feeling about what we reviewed, you're still getting some feedback, and we're telling people where to buy your movie. So in the end, hopefully people are still going to come, and you're still going to get your money, because that's important to us.
Right. And I get that. I completely understand it. And that's fair, because I'm going to name a movie that I absolutely loved. I don't think you guys did. And I even had the director on one Filmmaker because I loved it, which is Bigfoot.
I know exactly which one.
Bigfoot's Bride. And I loved that movie. And I don't know what it is, but I wanted to know everything about that film. It was just one of those movies where I watched it on Tubi, I purchased it, and then and I reached out and I wanted the director on board. And I said, can we talk about this movie? Because it's funny is that he also has a short in My Cosmic Horror film. And I thought it was interesting that he could go from an H.P. Lovecraft period piece that is shot very professionally to Bigfoot's Bride. And I wanted to know, like, how do you go from one to the other? And we talked about it. And it was just one of those things where I wouldn't have had that film on if I didn't like it. And I did have a different filmmaker say, do you really like the movie? And it wasn't Bigfoot's Bride. It was something else. I'm blanking on what it was. But I said, well, yeah, I wouldn't have you on the show if I didn't like it. You know,
Right.
you know, there's it's not a hate type. It's not a review show. It's that I like the movie and I want to talk about it. And some
Right.
people may think it's good and some people may think it's bad.
And there are examples. I mean, you know, for me, probably the biggest one is Blood-Sucking Freaks. I freaking hate that movie to bits. And I won't. I just think it's the most misogynistic piece of shit out there, and I won't talk about it. So there's a movie. There's an example of a film that I will not give props to, even to say it's a stinky movie. I just won't do it. And there are a few that are out there. So we all have our
look,
own.
So Bigfoot's Bride was a part of our Quick Review Thursday, and that was basically in Quick Review Thursday, Paul would pick movies that he got from like Dollar Tree or wherever, and he would be like, let's watch this, you know? And I think it was a Quick Review Thursday. It had to be. Or was it What the Fuck Friday? It feels like it was a What the Fuck Friday.
At this point, I don't remember. We've done so many.
But anyway, we talked about it, and we were very honest about our opinion, and we both felt the same way. However, you know, we had this other guy, and we're not going to name names, but there was a guy that we reviewed their short film because Paul bought a couple shorts that were on from you know, Tony Masello. Tony Masello puts out movies, and you know, on SOV horror.com. Yeah, and he put out a bunch of movies. Paul bought this one movie. We found out it was a short, so we're like, let's do it for Short Film Saturday. We desecrated the movie, and because it was not very well done. But we also talked about where you can get it and how.
Still fun though.
Yeah, it was still fun. We talked about how fun and how much it reminded us of Chris Seaver and blah blah blah. And the guy was wearing a Warlock home video shirt, so there's no way. So you guys can figure out who it was, whatever. So you can figure out what, you know. It was not the greatest movie. However, the director was not very happy. In fact, he unfriended me over it. And then he apparently wrote this big long thing about how he wanted to quit the film industry because of reviews. And I was like, ouch, you know, like we're not. And I wish I wrote back to him because I was going to write to him, but I was like, I don't think anything I say is going to make him happy.
Dude, we're little fish. How the hell are you going to survive working in the real industry with the big fish? Come on.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Well, how do you often get messages from people like after you review their film where either they're thanking you or hating you or something like that? Do you get those private messages?
Most of the time thanking.
Yeah,
most of the time thanking.
Thanks.
But yeah, the funny thing is he sent me a message and unsent them. So I have no idea what he sent me. So I'm like, okay, I think he was really pissed off at me.
The other thing, it's a little bit of a different situation because Jonathan is in the indie movie business full time. Yeah. This is what he wants to do with his career and then move on to other things. This is more like I don't want to say a hobby, but it kind of is. I have a career. I have a totally separate, completely different career. So I don't give a two hoots about whose feathers I ruffle. It makes no difference to me. Now, I'm not going to say I'm going to stomp all over a friend's thing. Okay, sure, I'm gonna be critical. I'm going to do it in a nicer way, but I'm still going to say what I think is the real reaction.
We did for Her Name Was Krista. We were honest, and there were things that there were probably things we didn't like, and we would mention that, but it's not like we're doing it to attack, right. And that's what we want to make sure people understand is like when we do Indie Film Cafe and we say stinky or whatever, it's generally because we love the movie itself in some way or whatever. Even movies that are high on the stinkometer, those movies are stuff that we love. Now there are some. We're really. I'm friends with Pat Casey, who you might know from the Sonic the Hedgehog movies and stuff. And we've reviewed a couple of their films. So far, all the movies that we've reviewed of theirs have been low on the stinkometer, Scott, because they're really freaking good. And actually, Gamebox 1.0, which they co-wrote, is so far the lowest rated movie that we have on the Stinkometer. So we try to be
There's
honest.
balance.
If there is something bad, we'll let people know. If it's good, we'll let them know. Either way.
Have you ever had a guest on that has been so bad, and it could be that they just don't say anything, or maybe they're just rude to the filmmaker, that you couldn't air the episode, or maybe you had to reshoot it, like stop and say,
no.
You don't do this, don't.
No, I think there were maybe one or two movies that we started and we decided, yeah, there's really nothing good to say at all. We don't even want to really promote it. We'll just not do this movie.
Right.
we kind of get a feel as we're going through the movie, and we're like, yeah, we'll do something different. But I don't think we've ever had a situation. I mean, we might have had one person who really didn't like the type of movies that we did, but otherwise, no, we've never had a situation.
Even then, those were still sort of fun episodes.
Yeah.
Go back to Paige. Paige did not know what she was getting herself into when she signed up. So the first movie off the bat was fuck, god damn it. It was the Mummy Cat movie.
Yes, Curse of the Mummy Cat.
And,
Charles B. Cullen.
And he's a Virginian, and I discovered him at Dark Delicacies in Burbank. I went in there and I was looking around for movies, and I found Curse of Mummy Cat, and so I sent Paul a picture of that, and I forgot what the other one was. But I sent him a picture of two movies, and I was like, do you have these? He was like, no, I need to get them. And he ordered them that day. Yeah, like right that second.
And I'm so glad I did. It was wonderful.
And David the Rock Nelson was another guy who I had known him for a while because I had bought a Ed Wood movie, and he was on a bonus disc for one of his Mummy AD or something like that. And Mummy 95 AD or something, and I known of him, and I became friends with him on Facebook, and I think you're friends with him too, John.
He's an interesting guy, that's for sure. He's very interesting. I knew him from when I was doing the Ed Wood documentary, and so I reached out to him because somebody said, oh, you need to, because he's like the self-proclaimed Ed Wood of like this generation or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
something like that.
Yeah.
So and he worked with Conrad Brooks, and he sent me a bunch of like VHS tapes where the covers were taped with like a piece of like colored paper. And then he would just take an ink pen, like a blue ink pen, and then he would write in like the story on it, and he directed it. He'd write he put like little ants on it, and he'd do all this stuff. And I spoke to him a couple times on the phone. Yeah, Devil Ant. And unfortunately, it just didn't, the whole thing just didn't happen. So it was, but then when I got friends with him on Facebook, I said, hey, do you remember me? And he goes, yeah, you were the guy who was going to do that Ed Wood documentary. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
That's so sweet.
He's
a good dude. Yeah.
He is a good dude.
He is a good dude. And you know what? He's a good example, actually, of somebody.
You were worried.
I was worried. And I was like, oh crap, he's gonna unfriend us. I was like, if he unfriends us, okay. They're like, sorry, you've already bought a bunch of his movies, so whatever. He listened to our review, all of it, because he actually said like specific things to like Paul about it, and he enjoyed it. He really enjoyed our review.
And this is when Jen barbecued.
Whew, we were honest about our opinion on it. Yeah. And because it was fucking 3 hours long, basically. And Paul says he doesn't know this. I don't believe him because,
Wait, what was 3 hours? The review or the movie?
Gone through this. If they knew, there was no way they would.
You did know then. Okay. All right, you asshole. But so we were like watching this like 2 hour and 45-minute movie that like started off with David the Rock Nelson talking like for like 20 minutes, like introducing the movie before the movie happened. So and then the rest of the movie, sometimes he would go back to that. And we were like, where in the world is going on here? But we talked about that, and David was very sweet about everything. And, he's a good guy and he knows, so we have had that happen.
Yeah,
We
guys
haven't,
like him and Charles B. Cullen, they're not fools. They know what it is they're doing, and it's okay. They're gonna make their movie, and if people love it, that's great. If people hate it, that's great. Long as they get their money, get some money out of it, they're fine with it. So we're totally cool with that. And again, we review it, we talk about it, and then we show people where to buy it, because I'm telling you folks, you have not seen a movie like David the Rock Nelson or like Charles B. Cullen. There's nothing else out there.
He's a very interesting guy, because it's and I wanted to make a documentary on him because he's ex-military, ex-boxer.
I would love that.
He's very religious. He's a filmmaker who loves horror movies, especially from, like the golden age of like Universal and stuff. Monster, Frankenstein, Mummy. All that stuff.
He won't fly in planes because he's suspicious of airplane technology.
See, he's an interesting guy.
He's an interesting fella.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, same thing with we got to interview the guy was it the director of Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter, and we had such a great time talking to him. But he actually knew, he actually knew he knew Tommy Wiseau, and he knew Neil Breen. He actually had Neil Breen's phone number, and he would call Neil Breen up, and he was telling us that we couldn't get Neil Breen on our show because he wouldn't do Zoom. We'd have to actually be in person to interview him because he's afraid of Zoom technology and stuff like that. Like he's afraid the government's trying to hack it.
Very conspiracy theory with him. You can see it in his movies. Yeah.
Right. Our next Vegas trip is definitely going to revolve around you and Neil Breen. We got to make this work.
Yeah, we're going to show up at his home and say, "Hey, let's interview you." Well, any way we can. But,
there's been a few people out here, Ted V. Michaels and Dennis Strickler and Neil Breen. I mean, all these guys are out here in Vegas. It's just, at the time it was the cheap place to live. Now it's going up, but
you were not too far away from. Yeah, you weren't too far away from LA. You could just, travel 4 hours. Yeah, and you'd be there. Yeah. So,
I'm always glad that I managed to talk to, meet, and interview Ray Dennis Steckler about 6 months before he died. So that was kind of one of my bucket list things. I was always very grateful that I had that opportunity.
Did you actually do an interview with him? So.
I mean, I did. I just didn't record it at the time.
So, did you record it on paper or anything, or no?
No, nothing like that. It was just him and me talking. We talked for about 2 hours. It was awesome.
Okay, well there you go. Wow. Yes, he had a lot to say. We need to do another Ray Dennis Steckler movie, dude, because you have a lot to say about his stuff. Rap Finka Boo Boo. If you guys haven't seen that movie, please check that out. It's amazing.
Awesome.
It is 2 movies in one, basically. You'll see what I mean when you watch it.
Where do you find the films to review?
Well, I do it differently than he does. So, Paul, you go first.
I mean, I like I said, I've been collecting movies in one form or another, since I was a kid. I mean, since the 70s on up. So I have a massive, massive collection of stuff. And then there are places on the internet where you can find stuff too. So I'll try to get digital versions of things. And I just, you come to our studio and you're going to see wall to wall video boxes all over the place. And, I'm just one of those nerdy collector guys that collects absolutely everything.
So me, I was 2004. I dived into this, this world because 2001 I started filming stuff, right? Like I started doing little videos, and a former friend of mine has suggested the book Make Your Own Damn Movie by Lloyd Kaufman, and so I started to follow. They had indie filmmakers who had movies out that were in the horror genre, like Chris Seaver and people like that, and I fell in love with that world. So I started, Kevin Strange is one of them, going online. In the beginning, it was MySpace. I would contact these people, ask them where I could buy their movies. Sometimes I had to buy directly from them on their website. So I would go to their website, spend $20, $40, whatever it was, buy the movie, and then, put it out. Or not put it out, just watch it or whatever. And then, so I've been collecting DVDs for a while too. So we both, if you go to the studio, you'll see a ton of movies, lots of boxes. Paul doesn't have as many boxes because he generally puts them in sleeves and gets rid of the boxes, I think. But me, I like them in my boxes.
Oh, I bring them to the studio. They're decoration for me.
Yeah. The boxes are, but
then,
the movies themselves are in their own thing.
In the late 90s and early 2000s, what I was doing is, because this is more like my hobby, I was going on to things like Internet Movie Database, and I would be writing reviews. That's where I started doing all the sort of movie things. Is I would write my reviews of all these movies, and then I ended up later on, when it became an easy thing to make your own website, I would do the Moo Cow reviews the movies, and I would have my weird little cow persona, and I would review it, and I would do all of the cow puns and all the ridiculous cow stuff, and and I would do all of these movies, and because everybody else was covering all the Hollywood stuff, and I don't want to do Hollywood stuff, I wanted to do all the indie weird crazy movies that I was tormenting my friends with, because I'd been tormenting my friends with weird movies for years and years and years. So this was right up my alley.
Yeah, and then he actually took the weird cow stuff and put it into indiefilmcafe.reviews. So he does, even now, because I've been having some guests on Zoom that Paul hasn't been a part of. I'll be doing my own like little teeny tiny blogs on there too. So we do that, and it's just a matter of like finding them online, finding them through eBay, Amazon. Now oldies.com has a ton of them, and we just
Dollar
look
Tree
around and find what movies Dollar Tree
and
Dollar Tree
here's the other
Tubi.
thing I wanted to point out. If you're talking about people who want to start their blogs or they want to start their podcast, I think it's important. I think it's a good idea to do what we do, which is we've got the site that hosts our podcasts, but we also have our video, our homepage, our sort of mothership, the review site, because you can go there and it's got links to everything that we've done there. It also has all the links to where you can buy the movies and where you can get all the other stuff, but it's like a one central place where you can see all the stuff that we've done. You know what I mean? I think that's a good idea to have a web presence like that.
And if somebody were to come to you and say, hey, I like what you guys are doing, I would like to start my own video series. Do you listen to them, or do you like Jonathan, you came to me and said, hey, would you like to do like a monthly thing? So what's the difference between somebody who comes to you and you going to somebody?
If somebody, okay, so I think, I don't think you've ever come to me, have you yet? If somebody came to me and said, I want to do a show on your network, we'd say, sure, 100%. Sure. Because that takes us less time off of our thing. We would just try to make sure that it didn't follow in the same path. And you had mentioned earlier, you'd asked the same question, John, about, like how do we differentiate the different shows, right? So like, how do I create Hooked on Hitchcock? Or how did I create, we've got Exploring Stephen King, films. So stuff like that. How do we decide to do that? It's more along the same thing as like, we want to make sure that each show is a different thing than the last shows that we did. So, Quick Review Thursday is going to be different than What the Fuck Fridays. Short Film Saturdays is all short films, so obviously that's in a different belt than Hooked on Hitchcock. Hitchcock, how we did Hooked on Hitchcock is G. Larry Butler, as part of Little Stinkers, kept complaining to me that he was watching these really bad movies and wanted to do good movies, and I said, well, that's all on Paul. Paul likes to torture you with these terrible movies.
That was the point of the
But
show.
right, which he was okay with in the beginning, but until he realized how bad these, I think he was thinking they were a lot easier.
So Fun in Balloon Land might have been a kind of a rough
Yeah.
movie. Santa Claus Meets the Ice Cream Bunny, a rough movie.
He really did not like the Eric Roberts
Talking Cat
movie,
Ah.
and stuff like that, and
It's terrible.
yeah, it's pretty bad. But anyway, the whole point was he wanted to do something different. So I suggested, because we had done a video, him and I, and we had released it, where we talked about Hitchcock films. A video where we talked, because he was fascinated by old films, just like Paul is fascinated by that. And I love Hitchcock. He's like my favorite director, period. And so I was like, I know a lot about Hitchcock because I've studied. To give you an example, I've got his book right here, one of his many books. There's tons of the books that I have of his. So I do research on him. I love him. And he's somebody, like, I don't want to mimic what he does. I don't want to be another Hitchcock, but I want to admire what he does so I could learn how to do my own stuff, kind of, or whatever.
So with having that love for Hitchcock, does that make you biased at all when you look at his films?
Well, so far this the first season of Hooked on Hitchcock, we haven't really done many movies that have been bad from Hitchcock, right? Like Hitchcock hasn't really done that many bad movies.
No.
But he has done a couple.
Yeah.
And we are going to talk about those. And we are going to talk about our feelings on why these aren't good movies, And even Hitchcock will say in Hitchcock and Truffaut, he talks about how bad some of these movies are, because maybe he didn't have enough time. Maybe it just didn't work. Like Under Capricorn is a movie that I bought and I was so excited to see. And when I watched it, it goes, woof, I can see why nobody talks about this movie. It is not a very good movie. However, it's still a better movie than some of the crap that, people are making these days, and everything, because it's done by the master of cinema. So that's a lot of what we'll talk about. I'm a biased guy, but like, I'll be honest and straight up. If I don't like something, if Hitchcock were still alive, I would tell him to his face if I met him. Like Under Capricorn was a bad movie, and he'd be like, "Get that man out of here," because he doesn't like my movie. And I'd be like, "Okay, I just got blocked by Hitchcock."
Yeah.
Blocked by.
I mean, hopefully not. I mean, so how far back do you go with that? So you've come up with the idea for Hooked on Hitchcock. You're going to watch Hitchcock movies. How far back do you go? Because I have a 2-disc set with him where it goes all the way back to the silent era. Do you start at the silent era and work your way up, or do you say, nope, we're going to start with this here and we're going to move forward?
I don't know. I didn't really. So when I created it, I didn't think of like, we're going to start at a certain time period and we're going to keep going. We just did different movies, right? Ones that G. Larry Butler had not seen. That was my plan. It's like, really, I want to educate him on these movies that he's never, maybe he had heard of it. I think like he had heard of Strangers on a Train, but never seen it, or whatever. So our plan was to do more of the obscure films to begin with anyway. And then by the end of the season, we would do the more popular movies. Like we did, Paul was a part of it, but we did Psycho as the last episode of the first season. And we went into our real big theories on that. But that's a popular movie, but we didn't want to do it for, didn't want to do Rope, Birds, Rear Window, Vertigo, North by Northwest, all in the first season, because everybody's covering those. We wanted to do Suspicion, Lifeboat, which Paul was surprised to hear that I actually love Lifeboat, even though it's got the one thing I hate about it, which is it's all set in one location. I don't like movies like that. Yeah, well, it's on a lifeboat. Hitchcock can make
it's right there in the title.
Hitchcock can make a movie about hanging out on a lifeboat and make it interesting because of the dialogue, the camera shots, everything. And in fact, I feel like anybody who's going to make a movie that's all set in one location, watch that movie, watch Rope has a little bit. I mean, it's got a little bit out of the location, but mainly one location. Look at movies like that and just see what makes them good. You know, too many movies, they just don't have the budget to make it. So they're like, okay, let's make it one location. Witch House. A lot of people love that movie. I get bored to tears. I'm like, can we leave the Witch House, please? Like, you know, that's why I like Witch House 3. Yeah. I like Witch House 3, which barely takes place in a house. I'm like, it's just called that. It's just got the same name. One
thing I was going to say, John, with regards to what you were saying about the difference between somebody coming to you or us going out to somebody to make stuff. You know, the thing about YouTube shows is that content is king and views are everything. And if you make a show, no matter how good it is, you're just kind of floating off by yourself and you're just not going to get a whole lot of views because you're just one show in a sea of a million, billion, trillion other shows. So when you attach yourself to another group that have already putting out stuff, you have a much better chance of getting more views. And then the people that you're attached to, now they have another show that they can promote and they're going to attract more views. So it's kind of a mutually beneficial thing. Yeah. And that's why we like to reach out to other folks. So we have, you know, like say Mark V. Valente, or we have some other folks who are doing some things for us.
That's right. That's a good example.
It's benefiting all of us because by themselves, they're probably not going to attract too much. But when we're all doing things together, it helps everybody.
I did ask Mark if we could basically do reruns of his show Brain Burrow, because, you know, why not? You know, like if you already have it, you know, it could help attract, you know, more people who never heard of it that are listening to our show or something, you know, or whatever. So yeah, but still nobody's ever really come to us. We usually go to them, you know, because we like the people that we surround ourselves with, you know. If we say, John, we want you to, would you be interested in doing this show? And you say, no, I'm too busy. That's fine. You know, we'll go on to something else. But if you're like, oh my God, that sounds great, let's do that, then we do it, you know. And then you can promote us on One Filmmaker, One Film. We, you know what I mean? Like it's all beneficial. It all works. Cross promotion.
Right.
And that's what we love.
Well, and that's what I find interesting about you guys, because I'm not saying that Jonathan is more Hollywood, let's say, but Paul definitely is not. And I still remember that one film. What was it? Alien Beast or whatever it was.
Oh God, Alien Beast.
Yeah, that is by far nothing that I would think Jonathan would pick. So Paul, how do you pick yours? I don't know.
It's not necessarily. I don't know. If I found it, I would have probably said, this is so bad, let's do it. It really depends, because like because I'll discover things, and Paul's kind of, maybe in the beginning that was the case. You know, when we first started out, Paul was more of the, I'm going to find you stinky movies and you're, you know, whatever. And I was looking for movies that I really enjoyed watching. And then it sort of became a more like, it's a competition to find who could find the bigger stink, you know, and stuff.
And I would say
Alien Prophecy was another one. You know.
Yeah, you guys have brought that up. I still need to see that. And Alien Beast, I have a feeling that Paul, that you picked that because you knew it was probably going to be 10 across the board, but I threw a wrench in that.
Yes,
so
you did.
A very big wrench, which you don't even. Last time I talked to you about it, you're like, I don't even remember giving it a 5, but you did. And
I remember not hating it. I remember trying to find something good in it.
I was surprised.
I know.
Yeah,
you said was that it was so bad it went back around to being to 5, and I'm like, wait, that doesn't even make any sense. You know, it should go
because it went off the scale.
Go all the way back around.
It's almost like you moved so fast around the world that you beat up with yourself. You know,
I feel like we needed Dustin Hubbard for that movie. You would have given it a 10.
Well,
The
so I
thing
mean,
is, I have a bucket load of those kind of movies
Right.
to share because I've seen them. I've seen so
Well,
many movies.
and we talked about this before on our show, so I'm excited to explain it to you on here. But last season, which was season 4, we had Alien Prophecy, we had Alien Beast, we had a ton of other movies, and we did not have a 30.
Yeah, we were
And
sure
we
we
were
were going to get
sure,
them.
and we kept thinking, oh man, this is no way. And then it did not happen, and we were disappointed. I mean, even a movie by a filmmaker we both know and we probably talked about in some subtle way earlier that we thought would be a 30. Still, we did not end up getting a 30. It was close. It was high up there, but it was not a 30. And I gave it a 10. I gave it a 10 to a lot of movies.
And
I thought were terrible.
It's disappointing, but it's also kind of fun too because you never really know. Even if you think something is a guaranteed 30 and then somebody comes out and says, well, I did kind of like that. Maybe we'll just give it a 9.5.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'm just glad
Really
Lenore didn't do that for Turkish Star Wars, which she fucking fell asleep to.
No.
So, you know.
But see,
I
I can watch a movie and say I like its location. Maybe the whole movie was garbage, but I like its location. Or, oh, I like the actress. So I can watch it for that and give it a better review than if it wasn't. I mean, I love movies that take place in the snow. You take Michael Myers and drop him in the snow, I'm there opening day. I mean, it's snow to me is awesome. And blood looks great on it. And it's just, you're trapped. And so I could find a lot of good stuff in bad movies where I could give it a better review. So I think
what
that's
about
why
movies that sort of have snow? Like it should have snow, but it doesn't really have, like it has snow at times and then it's green the rest of the time.
Yeah, we've got 2 movies.
No.
First, there's Snow Shark, where everything takes place in about 2 inches of snow. And then there's Blood Predator, which was supposed to have snow, but they didn't have the money to put it in, so it's all green grass.
And CGI fake snow thing falling down, you know.
the Blood Predator I haven't seen. Snow Shark I have. And I do remember there being snow in it. So that's okay. But it could be anywhere. It could be an island, you know, that people are stuck on. And I like the idea of the island, you know, or something like that.
Here's my opinion on that. And you have a good set. I like your mindset there of like saying that that there might be something that you like, so it keeps you from giving it a 10 or something, right? So you give it a 9 or an 8 or whatever for that. And that happens a lot. But here's my thing. If the movie is so bad that even if you can find one nice thing to say about it, like there was a scene that you liked, even though the rest of the movie was bad, it's still a terrible movie. So to go back to Actium Maximus, which is my least favorite movie of all time now, and you know, that movie was so terrible. The sound was bad. You could barely hear anything. I don't know what they filmed the fucking thing on. It was bad. There's just the characters were just drivel, and there might have been some scenes that were kind of cute in a way or whatever, but it was so terrible. It was a 10. I gave it a 9 or whatever or 9.5 because I didn't think Paul would do that to me the first day out, and he did. And now looking back, I'm like, I'm not gonna, you know, if it's a 30, it's a 30, you know, like, we haven't done that again since, you know. Actually we did, Turkish Star Wars, which was Paul's first movie of this season. He decided, you know, to give us, and me and Lenore, like, it's a 10. Like this, I'm not gonna make that mistake again. If a movie I feel is a 10, is a 10.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
I think
that happens. Sometimes there's a movie and you can find little bits and pieces here that are actually like shiny little diamonds in a sea of shit. But the overall crushing weight of the movie is so bad that it doesn't matter. It's still terrible, and it still sinks the movie.
I'm going to give you an example, and you brought up Chris Sieber earlier, is Happy Holidays. Mm-hmm. And I bought that. That's the Warlock video, you know, title on it. And I bought it as the missing film that was shot back in the 80s, and they just found it, and it's coming out now. So I purchased it. It is god awful. And it's mostly god awful because of its sound. You can't hear anybody. I mean, it is so bad. And the film itself, I think, is probably okay. But I would never, ever recommend this movie because of the sound. So I reached out to Chris Seaver and I said, the sound on this is so bad, you should redo it. And he's like, oh, well, no, it's a lost film. That's how they sound. I'm 54. I was around when VHS was out. I'm around when VHS you can go down and buy at Goodwill. It does not sound like that. It just doesn't sound like it does on a surround system these days. So young people who think this is what the stuff sounds and looks like are completely wrong because it doesn't. Right. And so that film, if we were to review it, I would give it a 10 solely on the sound because it was so frustrating. And I then got him to admit it's a new movie that they just marketed as a lost film from the 80s.
Oh no, that was all Warlock films. All Warlock films. They just made it, and and I think Happy Holidays was actually not directed by Chris Seaver. Actually, I believe that was directed by Josh Swar, who is one of the actors.
It might have just been Warlock Video that I reached out to. It might have just been Warlock Video then. Maybe on Facebook, just Warlock Video I reached out to. But I knew that Chris Seaver was involved.
Was a producer of it.
Yeah.
Chris Seaver was the
So
producer.
maybe I did reach out to him. Yeah.
But if I recall correctly, Josh did it. But it might have been Chris. I don't know. I just remember that it's not a great movie. I love Chris to death, and I will be a champion for everything he ever does, and I will buy whatever anything I can of his. Sadly, I just can't afford sometimes. The problem I have with Chris, and I've told Chris, so this is nothing new, is that a lot of what he's doing is just like, let me go shoot a movie with my friends right now and just make it, what I mean? He doesn't take a lot of time. And, when a movie like that, you can sort of tell when your heart's not in it.
And he's as critical of his own films, as we are, or worse a lot of times too.
I think he loves those Warlock films though. Like he enjoys making them, but maybe that's the thing. Maybe he enjoys making them and we don't enjoy watching them. It's fine. But Paul will tell you his favorite movie of all of Chris Seaver's is was it Sex Squatch? And that we're gonna eventually do that on Indie Film Cafe. I haven't been doing Chris Seaver, so that fucking Paul will do it.
John Ward.
I have not seen it. I think I've heard of it.
Oh my god.
There are certain films that just don't because so we're actually coming up on the end here, which is so this has been a great show. So I still want to ask you guys two more questions. But a long time ago, when I was working in a video store and I was in my 20s, you could not get me to watch one of those movies. If it didn't say Warner Brothers or Paramount or MGM, if it, especially Warner Brothers, I mean, I would not watch any of this stuff. It was pure garbage to me. Because why would you want to watch something like Sex Squatch when you could watch Die Hard? It's like, why would I want to watch that? I want to watch a quality movie. I want to watch
the opposite.
And so it's only within like the last maybe 15 years that I've gotten into these types of movies, but there are still certain films that maybe because of the title or whatever it is, I just don't have an interest. It was a Creature from Blood Fart Lake. I just have, maybe it's a good film.
Terror
at Blood Fart Lake. I have no, because it's called Blood Fart. I have no interest in watching it. Maybe it's my age. I don't know. So,
well, it's it's a more juvenile film, but it's fun. It was cute, and it's also stars Nicola Fiore, who works with Dustin Hubbard. So I've always been a huge fan of Chris since he was the first filmmaker to ever talk to me. He sent me a message on AIM, that's how long ago it was, AOL Instant Messenger. And he sent me a message and was like, who is this? And he was like, Chris Seaver, or this is the Sievage. And I was like, oh, I'm about to watch your movie, Quest for the Egg Salad. And he was like, okay, I can understand if you're never going to talk to me again. If you never talk to me
a lot
again.
of them know.
Like, what? Yeah. And you know what? That's the that's the movie. Now we work with Tina, who was in that movie. And that movie was the one that spiked me into Chris Seaver world and everything. And I've been a fan ever since. So I've got more Chris Seaver films than Paul has, but we still love the guy,
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. And I somewhere around the 80s, it all changed for me. To me, I noticed that all of the full moon stuff and all of the Lloyd Kaufman trauma stuff, all of that stuff was far more interesting and fun than what Hollywood did the total switch. I'd much rather watch Sex Watch than watch Die Hard any day of the week.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, you said you had like 2 final questions for us.
Yeah. So the first one,
you?
Yes. Yeah. So the first question is what not to do. Not to get kicked off of YouTube, not to get kicked off of other platforms. What should people who want to do this type of thing not do?
Well, go ahead.
I would say try not to let personal politics influence the stuff you're going to talk about. It's something that already seeps into every aspect of our lives, and everybody's got opinions and things like that. But for the most part, if you're dealing with films, unless you're specifically talking about political films that have political agendas, I would stay away from that. I think you're going to turn a lot of people off, even if you happens to be talking about stuff that other folks might agree with you about it. I think talking about movies, and particularly the kind of movies we talk about, I think it's nice to be able to provide people with something that's not about all of that, because it already seeps into every bit of our life. It's nice to have something away from all of that. Even
entertainment.
If you say things that are not politically correct, that are not woke, that are not whatever, that's fine. This is a place where you can talk about it, where you can hear about it, and it's okay. It's a safe space for anyone to talk about whatever they want to talk about.
100% agree. And Paul and I never talk about, well, I'm apolitical, so I don't talk about politics, period, anyway, generally speaking. But me and him basically try to make sure that when we do a show that we're very kind of mindful of our audience, so if our audience are nerds like us, that's kind of what we're trying to get as people who like these B movies and everything like that. I say, and especially if you want, we are not, we don't make money off of this except for Patreon. So we don't get money from YouTube. We're not monetized. If we do become monetized, we would have to change things. Like we'd have to change What the Fuck Friday to what WTF Friday on the logos, on the thumbnails and stuff like that.
Ridiculous.
So, but yeah, it's, it's stupid. It's ridiculous, but
it is.
What can you do? Like, it's part of what YouTube likes. YouTube does not want us to have that and everything. And if you want to be monetized, you can't say, hey, welcome to What the Fuck Friday in the first 30 seconds. You have to say, hey, welcome to WTF, or whatever, you know what I mean? And that's just the way that YouTube is. They're censoring, which is not cool, but what can you do?
Their platform. So you got to dance to their tune.
Yeah. And you know what? I would rather be censored on that kind of silly stuff. Like, to me, cursing doesn't even matter. If I curse, it's usually by accident anyway. It's not like, I'm doing it on purpose, or whatever. It's like, it just kind of happens out of my mouth. So I'll have to watch what I say now or whatever, but I'm not going to, it is what it is. So that's what I would suggest is if you want to be monetized, just be careful, look at all the user agreements, just make sure you just don't say anything or do anything that might get you kicked off.
Yeah, and try not to alienate your audience or half of your audience. I am a very, very political and, I have very, very definite ideas about religion and society, but I try to keep that to myself because it doesn't matter. It's not about me. It's not about that. It's about the movie. So keep it about the movie.
I will say, though, I laugh that you say that because I had a person say, I interviewed somebody and the comment was about how I talked too much and I didn't interview the person, and that the show wasn't about me. And I laughed because I'm like, you've been watching these shows? It's all about me. I'm sorry. I'm the interviewer and it is all about me. The guest is awesome and I'm glad to have the guest on. But when I do the show, I'm allowed to talk about my own personal shit too, so that we connect together. We don't want just it to be like me asking questions the whole time, because that gets boring to me, in my opinion. Just like this show, John, you brought up your own personal stuff or whatever. I really hope you don't get anybody who comments, that whatever, because you know what? I enjoy you having your 2 cents about your own personal shit, because that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's
end, who cares
I do.
What anybody has to say? Let them say what they want to say. No big deal.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because sometimes it's difficult. Like Jonathan and I did the review for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the new one, and Texas. It's actually a very political movie. I mean, it's sometimes it's pro-gun, sometimes it's anti-gun. Sometimes
it was very confusing on its politics.
Yeah, I mean, it's very with gay rights and black rights, and I mean the Confederate flag was there, so it's hard
like
not to
think in a thing.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of, if you review it, you've got to bring that up.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, I may rewatch it, but
like it's everything except.
Yeah, I have
no interest.
But there is a massacre in it, though. There's just no cannibalism. So, all right. So I'm going to let you guys go in 1 second. So, yeah. Is there anything you guys want to plug? It can be from the past, the present, or the future. What do you want people to know and look forward to?
That's a Moody question.
I guess the simplest ways to do it is check out sickflickproductions.com, which is our one of our motherships, one of them. Then there's the other mothership, indiefilmcafe.reviews, and you can check out all the different reviews or you can see links, or you can check out indiefilmcafe.podbean.com, where you can see our podcast and everything, or go on Indie Film Cafe on YouTube, where you'll see all our videos and stuff. And we also have a playlist which has all like different shows that we do, so that way, if you want to watch What the Fuck Friday, but you want to watch a whole bunch of them or something, you can watch those. I actually really like that because, sometimes I like to go back and check out what we did, and then we also have our Patreon, where you can spend $1. If you spend $1, you'll get a Patreon only podcast that you can hear every month. There'd be a new one. This last month we did one with you, John. You were on our one where we did.
I was.
What was that one? Yeah, it was. God, the spaceship one did.
Space Mutiny.
Krampus versus Bigfoot.
Space Mutiny. Mutiny. Yeah, the Bigfoot.
We did that one too.
So What the Fuck Friday. Yeah, that was What the Fuck Friday, and that'll be. Or no. Quick review Thursday. Jesus Christ. Should have been a What the Fuck Friday, but it was a quick review Thursday.
I couldn't wait to show that to you guys.
I know that, but you didn't realize it was the last one. We feel honored. Thank you, Paul.
You bet.
So anyway, we got that Patreon only, where we basically do more of the popular movies. We'll do an indie film that maybe, all of us have a chance to see on Tubi or something. But and we've been doing a lot of the Stinkometer this season for that. So And that's another thing is like plugging the fact that this season is our season 5. So we've been doing 3 episodes a month. You generally it would be like the first month is I do 2 and he does 1. Next month he does I do 1, he does 2, and vice versa. So kind of switches off a little bit.
And the Patreon only one is a lot of fun because you're going to get stuff on there that you're not going to hear anywhere else, not on YouTube, not on our regular show. So, for example, if you want to hear us riffing and talking about the Star Wars Holiday Special, you're going to have to join for $1 and hear poor Moody moan and groan through that film.
Or if you want to hear us talk about Double D Avenger again, but actually chat with G. Larry Butler about it.
Larry Butler.
Yeah, so we thought that was pretty cool. Also, check out horror films with horror film lovers, where we have a Instagram, we have a we have a TikTok, we have TikToks now. That's right. God dang, we have get so much content out there, man. Social media is crazy right now.
Content is king.
Yeah. So, and that's going to be a big thing. Things you're going to see a lot more stuff every day. There's going to be content almost every day, at least weekly, content, Monday through Friday. We are trying our hardest to get you guys content, to get you guys the clips from the podcast, to get whatever, and have them up on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, Facebook, all of those
and
things.
If all these shows weren't enough, then Moody will do things like, I think I'll do the 31 movies in 31 days challenge. I'll do the, this challenge and that challenge.
Which both of you guys were a part of my first 2 episodes of 52-week movie challenge. And then since then, I've been just doing it by myself. It's just simpler than, asking somebody
and we got
to do it because I'm already, what?
And we got the Stephen King thing coming up too. So
we got Stephen King films, and on top of that, you and I, John, have been doing Horror Film Lovers Mainstream Mondays. So that's not going to be that will be every Monday, Mainstream Monday. But after a while, John may have to take a break, and so I might be doing it with another guest, or I might be doing them by myself. Because I've been doing a lot of them first time watch Fridays.
And I'm so glad that Moody's been reaching out and bringing in other people in, for variety's sake, and also gives me a break.
It's funny. I've been like do these things, please do.
Godspeed.
Yeah, and I always thought it was like, because I've been doing all of them with Paul, and everything on Paul's episodes. We've been just doing it because it's just easier sometimes to have a third person like me and to do Zoom or something. So it's just there's a lot going on. So as was earlier stated, yes, there's a lot to do. If you're going to run a show and you want consistency, what I would do is take a spreadsheet, or I do notes on my Apple, thing. And what I will do is I'll write Monday, and then I will start writing out when we're going to start shooting that. And then I also have a separate sheet where I keep knowing which ones are coming out that year or that month, all the way through the whole year, because I want to know, this episode's going to come out so I can promote it because I've been forgetting release because I've just been so busy with a million things that and I don't want to forget them. I want them out and people to know. And we don't have a social media manager. So if you're looking for an internship at a company and want to help us out, we will very gladly let you in on our group.
Absolutely. If you want to get, introduction to podcasting and to filmmaking and to doing all of that stuff, we will happily trade you, your energy and time for our experience with us.
Exactly. Right,
okay.
John?
That is correct. Well, hey, I've learned a lot, thanks to you guys. So, I kind of...
I hope so. I hope we were able to like give you guys some help on that, because that's really what our show's about, is coming together and just enjoying the spirit of indie film.
And we want to put out more swag. We want to do a lot more stuff, special. We have a bunch of special things that we wanted to do, special shows. We had a stinkathon with Angel Bradford that we were going to do, but things kind of fell through, but we're still going to do it.
We're still going to do it.
Sometimes we'll do live things. We did Robot Monster live at the Fort Monroe Coffee House. Hopefully we're going to be able to do some more live programs at the Fort Monroe Theater.
I know Kate wants to come back. Kate Phoenix wants to come back and do some stuff with us.
Right. I mean, we got other shows in the incubation period.
That's the fun thing, is like people enjoyed coming on our shows before, either as a guest to be interviewed or whatever, and they want to, like Angel was somebody who never watched indie horror films or whatever, and Paul showed her From Hell It Came and she fell in love. Actually, the first one you showed her was the other one, the carpet monster movie.
It was Creeping Terror,
which I gave a lower review than I gave it a lower review. I gave it an 8, while Paul and Lenore both gave it a 10s. They were shocked because they
Creeping Terror? I'd give that film a 1.
See?
I love Creeping Terror. I love Creeping Terror. It's one of my all-time favorite bad movies.
You need to see the creep behind the camera, which is the documentary, the making of that. It is absolutely fascinating, and I got to show that. I got to show that to you, Moody. You'll love it. You'll flip out.
Yeah,
where is it?
No,
it's great. I have a copy of it, but you can buy it on Amazon.
Oh, I want that then. So yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah. If you loved, what was the documentary about the Isle of Dr. Moreau?
Lost Souls.
Lost Souls. If you love that, and I love that, you'll love the same. It'll be the same thing. It's just as wonderful.
And what's it called
Lost
again?
Souls is amazing.
The creep behind the camera.
The creep behind the camera. Okay, I'll have to look that up then. So, all right, guys. Well, let's wrap this up. Wow, it's a lot. It's actually longer than what I thought it was going to be. So perfect. Thank you very much.
That's what she said.
She always says that. Always. Always. It hurts my feelings. But
I know.
What are you going to do?
But it'll be okay. So thank you, John, for taking your time out of your busy schedule.
Thanks for inviting
us. You are very busy as well. We don't give you enough credit because I know you've got a lot of shit going on, with your podcasts and your videos and things. So, we really appreciate this, time.
Well, thank you. And I really appreciate you guys being on. Like I said, I thought that this would be very interesting for people that are interested in doing a podcast. And since you influenced me, who would I, you guys would be the ones to have on.
Maybe somebody will be influenced to go start their own podcast and vidcast. And like I said, more power to you guys. If you guys want to do it, if this is something, but like we said before, this has to be something you want to do.
Gotta love it.
You gotta love it, because like there's gonna be times where you're just gonna look at the things, you're gonna see 16 views or something, and you thought this was the biggest, money maker that you've had in forever, and then it just doesn't do well. But then the one you thought was gonna be amazing, the one you thought was gonna get you millions of views and everything, gets you one. And you're like, what the fuck? That's the best thing I've done.
And it was your view.
And it was your view that got the one. I mean, that's heartbreaking. But you know what? It's if it makes you not want to do this, do something else, because you're gonna have to get a tough skin. You're gonna have to like really love and want to do this.
Yeah,
and find some other like-minded people and hook up with them. Get as part of their group. I think that'll help out a lot of young podcasters.
Yeah, sometimes it can be very confusing. I know that Jonathan, you were looking down the list of my videos at one point, and the ones that do the best for me are the Dollar Tree ones. And then we came across, and normally they get 50 views, 60 views, something like that. But then we came across one that was 134 views, And for me, that's probably like the second biggest one I've had. And all it was Dollar Tree random films. Like it wasn't even a special video. It was just, oh, I want to put out a video of the Dollar Tree movies I haven't talked about yet. Boom.
Well,
compared to the other ones.
Funny. The one for us that got like the most attention was one that, yes, and it was one that Paul reviewed, and he was just talking in his, in his freaking
why that got
no, I know why because people who are fans of that movie are checking it out, and they are like coming to it because it's the only one on there. They're looking for that movie, and that's what comes up, and then they check it out. And you know what? That's what we wanted to do. That's why I created 31 Days of Indie Horror, and a lot of these ones is to shine light on films that not a lot of people talk about, that like red letter media won't touch, that we find, and it gets us attention. And we know what? We love it, and when I saw that, it sparked I wasn't even a part of it, and it sparked a twinkle in my eye, because I was thinking that is exactly why we started Indie Film Cafe. It wasn't to be famous. It wasn't to make money. It wasn't to whatever. It was to spotlight films that we enjoyed or thought were stinky or thought were fun, or whatever. And that's why we do it. And that's why we want who's ever going to go out and make a podcast because you love it, not because you want to go out and spread hate or be a troll or do that. There's enough of that in the world. We want people to go out and make movies or make podcasts and stuff because they love it.
Yeah. And one thing I will toot our own horn about, even if we do a movie that Red Letter Media and Misty and Riff Tracks and others and the Cinema Snob have covered, I guarantee you, our version of it, our coverage of it is not going to be the same.
There may be things that we talk about that they talk about, but that's just because we watch the same movie, but most of the time we look at the different things. Bloodbath and Beyond, we love them to death, but they are a different thing than what our Quick Review Thursday will not be the exact same way as him. And I've always talked about that. I like Cinema Sickness. He's one of my favorite YouTubers. His stuff is completely different than mine. Oh, sorry. Well, yours is actually my favorite.
Mine or Paul's?
I was talking about you, John, because you got thank you. Defensive.
Thank you.
And it's true, though. I really like watching your show, and I love watching other shows that have sort of, been around the same thing. We did the haul videos. Us three do haul videos together sometimes you might not be able to make it, John, and that's fine, but we do the haul videos and everything. And what is it? I didn't come up with this. This is something that other people have been doing for a while, and there was a group that did a monthly haul, and I love that. But they're not the only ones who do the monthly haul. We're not copying anybody. We're just doing our own version. And I guarantee you, they aren't doing hauls about like bad movies from, that they got at Dollar Tree. They were doing more mainstream stuff that they bought, and stuff. And that's fine.
Sure. I thought it'd be fun, John, if you were to do another series, if you could like, sort of dress up like as a blood spattered Santa Claus and have your axe with you, and you could I think that'd be kind of fun, sort of tie into Xmas.
I do have on one for Mother Krampus 2. I'm wearing a Santa hat.
Nice.
That could work? I mean, that's the closest thing so far. So you never know.
Yeah, we sort of did that. We did 2 Christmas things, and we had all Santa hats because a friend of ours brought over Santa hats for everybody, and I thought that was the cutest.
We did a What the Fuck Friday with silly masks on. That was a lot of fun. Oh
God, yeah. That was only because at that time I did not want to show my face while I was talking about this movie. It was called Kung Fu and Titties, and it's on Tubi. But I was like, I do not want to show my face talking about this shitty movie. And
So much fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Sean C. Phillips, I think, is in that movie. It's
What is Sean C. Phillips not in? Can you name a movie that he's
I
not
know.
in? I think he's
He
even in
hasn't
The
been in any of mine
Graduate, but he
yet.
hasn't been born yet.
And you know, the next level, I would love to do a movie review show where we're in character, like say a characters from Echo Lake Universe or something, where we're doing a show, but we're doing it as characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not as ourselves.
We're planning to do that. It's just
So
it's
much
like
fun.
it
That does
takes
sound fun,
a
yeah.
little bit of time. Yeah, it does take a little bit of time to kind of, plus all the other shit we're already doing.
Right.
It takes some time to like plan this stuff out. But that's the beauty, is like, this is just the beginning of the year, buddies. Like, this
Yep.
is fucking March, or whatever this comes out at, like, this is just the beginning of the fucking year, wait, there's more coming, like,
Hold my beer.
just get ready. Yeah. Hold that cow's beer. There's shit coming, and we're excited. We can't wait. So, and we're very happy you're a part of it, because John.
Thank you. I'm proud to be part of it. Honored.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. We really do.
Oh, well,
Thank
and
you
I
so
appreciate
much.
you guys. So you're welcome, and thank you. So, all right. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap this up then. So, we know, from what Jonathan said, more shit is coming. We're only at the beginning of the year, so a lot of stuff to look forward to. So, all right, you guys. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Paul, for being here, and thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate it, and we will see you on the next One Filmmaker, One Film. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Where's my hand? There we go. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye. Hey, everybody. Thanks for hanging out after the video. And thank you for watching the very first Dark Park Films sponsored video. And who is that sponsor? Well, I've now learned if I do this with my hands, they go to the right area. There we go. That would be Wildlife Command Center Coffee, and you can purchase it right there. You can go to their website, which is buyWCC.com, and pick up their coffee. They have 2 blends, which I'm going to show you now. The first coffee is this one right here. This is a breakfast blend. It's 10 ounces, and it is a medium ground. And it does say, and it's breakfast, like I said, and this is what it says right here. It says, early bird can catch the worm. So there you go. A breakfast blend coffee that helps you catch the worm in the morning. And I really like this one. I'm more of a breakfast kind of blend coffee guy in the morning. So this one I really like. It has that little bit of oomph to it to kind of get you moving, get you up and out. And so I really enjoy this one. But that doesn't mean that I don't like the other one, which is this one right here. This is a dark roast. It is also 10 ounces. And both of these are $7.99 at their website. Pretty good price for 10 ounces worth of ground coffee. This one is, it's a little darker. So it's, I think it's better for drinking at night. Maybe if you're, writing a screenplay, or if you're filming, this has got that oomph, that double punch to get you going. So this is one that I also recommend. I like both of these quite a bit, but I kind of do, the breakfast in the morning and then the dark more at night. So I recommend both of these quite a bit. And how did I find out about these two coffees here? And how did I find out about Wildlife Command Center? Well, when I was working on Night of the Zomghouls, there was a box of coffee that was just sitting there, filled with coffee. And we didn't know what to do with it. Like, whose is this? Who brought it? Why is it here? And so we just kept going to the store and buying coffee. And then one day I said, why don't we just get the coffee out of the box and use that instead of, wasting money on going to Smith's or whatever and picking up coffee. So we did. We did not realize that it was the Wildlife Command Center coffee, and that it, was sponsoring the movie. And it was great coffee. Everybody loved it. And we just went right through it. By the last day of filming, this coffee was gone. And I went and found out, about Wildlife Command Center, asked if they would like to be a sponsor for Dark Park Films, for their coffee. As many of you know, I love coffee. I love coffee mugs. And so this was a perfect match. And Wildlife Command Center is great with animals. So they provide a great service for rescuing animals. So it's kind of that double whammy for me, where coffee, helping animals, you can't go wrong. And they were even cool enough to send me, get in there, a coffee mug, because they knew that I liked coffee mugs. And right now, I don't get that. A little bit. I'm going to go on the keyboard, but that's their dark blend, because I'm recording this at night. So I am actually drinking that while recording. Also, one thing that you can get at their website, which is cool, is you can get this. There you go. This pocket knife, which is $9.49. And this is pretty cool because it has their name on it. Wildlife Command Center, we can catch it. And this is what it looks like. Put that down there. There we go. Fully out. So you're getting like the bottle opener, you got the corkscrew, you got a screwdriver, you got a blade, and then you got this little hook thing that you can pop it into something that doesn't have a tab, and then the liquid or whatever in there will come out. So this is pretty cool. And I'm just going to keep mine in my car, because you never know. You might need a pocket knife. So please support them. I'm going to have links down below, where you can, check out just the Wildlife Command Center. I'll also have a link for Wildlife Command Center coffee. And it will basically be for both these guys right here. And please support them. I support them. I think what they do is pretty awesome. And, maybe this coffee will be on your set or in your kitchen. It will definitely be, on my set, in my kitchen. I know that. So please, once again, I'm going to show you these. Please go to their website and pick up their coffee and make it part of your day or night, depending on which one you like. So that'll be about it. I really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with me. And yeah, so thank you. And once again, please support my channel. Please support the Wildlife Command Center. And I will catch you later. Bye.